Oh, I did come up with a theme tune though. If you want me to do that.
You've come up with a theme tune.
Yeah, unless you had any other ideas.
No, I've had no ideas.
Leave this in.
I'd almost forgotten that these things generally have a piece of music.
Yeah, no, I've got something prepared if you want.
You've got something prepared. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm terrified and excited. Yes, please.
Okay. Honey, I shrunk. Honey, I shrunk. Honey, I shrunk. Nothing but static. There you go.
That's great.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
That's that done. I don't need to do anything else the whole podcast, mate. You know, I had a few revelations in prepping for this.
Right.
But do you know what my big revelation was?
Go on.
I'm pumped, right? To the point where, for listeners, we were meant to record this another time. We've rearranged it, and Dan was like, "But aren't you doing? Isn't that your like day off? Weren't you going to be doing something else? Weren't you just going to be relaxing or something?" And I was like, "Mate, it's chatting about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with my boy. That's fine by me." And he was like, "All right." And I realised that I think you're pleased to be doing it, and but part of you, I realised that we've switched roles with this podcast, and actually, there's almost a sense of exasperation with you when you talk about this, and that's been me for like 3 of the other podcasts we've done. So I just think. You forced, like, this isn't going to take as long as forcing me to watch Fringe or Steven University or even Over the Garden Wall. So, like, chill out, Dan, and get on board because Billingham's hyped.
I mean, it's
basically.
It's not a comment on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, although I have comments on that.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
But it's more a comment on how ridiculous it is. Because, right, we make many silly jokes and statements that we're going to do X and Y with the podcast on this channel, Chris, over the years. We've said all sorts of weird shit, like as a joke. Like, next week it'll just be me because I've fired Chris or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, we say silly things all the time. We do, it's all in the name of, like, I don't know, humour, in quote marks, because I don't know if we can ever call what we do comedy. But this is one of those ones
That's fair.
Where it was said as a joke, and now we're doing it. And that's...
Now here we are. But again, like, you go, let's watch a cartoon. It'll only take 15 minutes, Chris. Don't worry about it. 15 minutes to record an episode. We can record them before Nothing But Static. Won't be a problem at all. And I go, oh, okay, fine. And then, hour and a half episodes later, we recorded... Let's put this into context, Dan. We recorded 3 hours worth of content about one episode. Like,
more than.
My point is, and even when you were the other day, you were like, "Oh, it'll probably only take about half an hour." No. Let's, we're going to do Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It's a stupid idea, Dan, but it's the first one of my ideas we fucking committed to.
Wait a second. I don't think I ever said it would only take half an hour. I said it's completely unknown, and therefore we should be careful when we choose to record it, because let's let it breathe and do what it needs to do.
Oh, yeah. I think we've got, if we can, recording all of these where we've got, like, avoiding evening recordings, which actually I think we're already not, because we're recording one evening next week. But, yeah, no, I am pumped. So here's my first question for you, Dan.
Yes, having seen the film.
Well, actually, this is... No, see, again, Dan. Again, right? You're rushing it. Let it breathe, okay? We don't need to get to analysing the film just yet.
Oh my god,
chill out,
we're
okay?
not even on the film yet, alright? What are we talking about then, Chris? Enlighten me.
Because Steven Universe... Oh, okay, so Chris, Steven University. So Chris, you're not really into animated TV shows. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And Fringe. Oh, well, the history. I like the show, and Chris didn't like the show. And Over the Garden Wall. Okay, so you're now really into animation. We got to do the background, buddy. We got to do the background.
But
so
okay,
here's my question: What are your memories of this film? This film series. What is your history with it? Where were you? Mentally, when you sat down to watch Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
Well, a lot to unpack there.
We got time. Don't worry about it.
I imagine, and I don't know for sure because I was very young, But I used to, at Christmas, every year, I used to buy, before Christmas, a bunch of blank VHSs. And then I would go through the Christmas TV guide when that came out and circle all the films I wanted to tape.
Mm-hmm.
And there were films, they were not always films I had always seen. They were not always films I had grown up with. So I saw Back to the Future as early as 5, and it was a huge part of that childhood. But it was a couple of years later until I caught Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I must have been about 8, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember, which actually now I say it, that doesn't sound that much longer, 3 years later. But still, Back to the Future is more deeply ingrained in my childhood than Honey, I Shrunk, which is weird because it was only a couple of years difference in terms of seeing it.
That's funny. Back to the Future comes up in my bit, but go on, carry on.
So I basically, one Christmas, saw that they were doing Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and maybe Blew Up the Kid, because I think both would have been out at that point. 1 second. Let me just check that's actually
Yeah, Blew Up was 1994, so yeah, I would suspect so. And you got to remember, this was back in a day when...
No, it couldn't have been, because when I was 8, it was only 1995. So
it wouldn't have got to...
It wouldn't have been on television at that point, so
TV.
it would have just been...
That was back in the day where films took, 3 years to get on TV.
Yeah, 100%. So there's no way that was on TV. So Honey, I Shrunk must have been on TV, and it was one of the films I circled, watched but taped, and then watched 1,000 times over. I mean, of course, child me absolutely fell in love with this film instantly. The funny thing about the Honey, I Shrunk franchise is then I was in right up until the age of I think 13 or whatever. When, well, no, it would have been older. When did Honey We Shrunk Ourselves come out?
1997.
97. How old would I have been then? I'd been 10 then. Okay, yeah, great.
March 1997 to be exact, Dan. And carry on.
So between the ages of 8 and 10, 11, when that came out, loved it. Loved everything about it. Loved everything about the franchise. Watched the TV show. Watched, so probably until about...
you watched the TV show? Wow.
Yeah. Mate, yeah. Whenever I went to for a while when we moved back from Ireland, I stayed with my auntie who had Sky and therefore had the Disney Channel, and I'd never had the Disney Channel, so I watched fucking everything on the Disney Channel because I'd never had access to that before, and that included Honey, I Shrunk the series. So I watched bulks of that, episode to episode. My memories of it are kind of vague now, but then must have been around the age of 12, 13. That just stopped. And I just don't think I've seen any of this stuff since. I literally don't think I've seen any of this since at all. Because my memory of this film, it was coming back to me as we were watching it. But I was like, it's been a very long time since I've seen this. A very long time.
That's similar to me. So I had this bizarre, and it's obvious, and I think it's been mentioned on the podcast before, certainly the conclusion of this. But I had this bizarre thing because I would have definitely classed this as one of the films of my childhood. I would have been like, yep, Honey, I Shrunk is up there with, your Back to the Futures, your, Toy Story, etc. And I can tell you now, I had because I asked the same question to Jess before we started watching it, and she humoured me a lot less than you just have. She was just like, I don't know, I think I've seen it. And I was like, well, okay, that's not the level of detail I wanted, but I had exactly the same as you, and I can picture in my mind the type of label that was on the blank VHS tape. It was a blue label with a line to write on, so you could write on 2 bits of the label.
Yep.
And I, in handwriting that covered both bits of the label, had written, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It may even still be at Mum and Dad's. It might be quite fun for me to see if I can dig that out and take a picture.
Yeah.
And I had recorded that one, and I don't know if we recorded Blew Up the Kid, but it was certainly one I'd watched, and I remember I remember, as a kid, you don't want to admit anything's, but I remember inherently not enjoying it as much. I do remember that. I do remember being a bit like, oh yeah.
Which is funny because in a minute I'll tell you, Nadia actually much prefers Honey, I Blew Up because she had that one on VHS and not the other one.
Wow, that is interesting.
So that's her favourite.
Well, that's so much. Well, I am intrigued about that as to whether because graphically, special effects wise, you have to special effects essentially one thing. Maybe is my assumption. So I'm intrigued as to whether that one's going to hold up. But we'll get to that when we talk about Shrunk. So and I do, but my bigger so more than Blew Up the Kid, which I remember seeing a lot. And again, I would have classed it in the same way. In '97, Shrunk Ourselves came straight out to video, so you got to assume the UK had it 97, 98. It wouldn't have been, 3 years. I'm a little bit younger than you, so I'd have been like 8, 9. And I remember blue VHS. I can again describe that VHS to you. And I remember having that one on like official video. And watching that a whole bunch as well, and really enjoying that one. My memory is enjoying that one more than enjoying Blew Up the Kid.
Now, see, weirdly for that one, I have a weirder experience with that one. My nana, who worked at a video shop, used to get sample copies of films before they came out on video.
Oh wow! Oh nice.
So I got to see that one long before it actually came out on VHS, because what they'd do is they'd send them the VHS, like one copy of it, and be like, this film's great. You should get this for your video store when it's released in 3 months' time or whatever. So I saw a bunch of films that way. Like I saw Addams Family Values before it came out because of that as well. But I say before it came out, presumably it had been in cinema screens at that point. It's just going to the cinema was a rare treat. And also, I'm pretty sure Honey, I Shrunk didn't do... Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves didn't do cinema release. I'm pretty sure that's a direct-to-video release.
That's what I just said. It was straight to video. And the rare thing about... The reason that's cool, though, is because people are probably like... People are probably like, oh, well, you got it a little bit earlier, Dan. But again, to reiterate, back in those days, potentially, sometimes a year between cinema release and VHS release. Yeah. Like, that to get it even a little bit early is cool. Because if memory serves as well, what it would do is it wouldn't even come out to buy right away. You could rent it on video from Blockbusters or your catalogue video rentals.
We had to wait 3 more months for it to do that.
Exactly, and then for it to come out and for it to be available to buy. So I remember really enjoying that one. The TV show, I remember turning on a couple of times and going, it's not. I wouldn't have thought it's not Rick Moranis, but I definitely thought, it's not the same cast, and didn't watch it. So I haven't seen the TV show.
Wait, you never saw the TV show at all?
No. No,
wow.
if the Disney Channel was on, mate, it was all about Boy Meets World.
I got you. I understand.
And so this is, speaking of, the weird thing about this is, as I was watching it, there were a few things. Obviously, the initial shrinking, the garden, the ant, the cookie, Amy. You got to remember the age I was. I'm aware that in context now makes me, makes me sound like a horny teenager watching this, but I remember like that. I remember the characters, less so the parents of the other kids, and I remember the Cheerios. And when watching it, was like, there's a lot. It's coming, like you, it's coming back to me, but there's a lot I don't remember. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, how many? It really more than anything else. And I think, like I say, I've said it on here before, but more than anything else, it made me go, man, I was a TV kid. Because I started thinking, well, what are the films that I could remember in great detail? What are the films that you could play now from my childhood? And I'd be like, yep. And I was like, Back to the Future was instantly the first one. Yeah. Like, the Back to the Future trilogy was the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, me too.
And then I thought about it a bit more, and I was kind of like Toy Story. And I've not looked at a list, so I might be missing some. But I was like, man, it's just those. And then I went...
Interesting.
And then I went, Well, what? Well, yeah, but looking at a list, I might go, oh yeah, but I think it says a lot if I can't think of like anything else. And like I say, Honey I Shrunk would have been in that kind of top 5, but actually I hardly remember it. And then I was like, well, what about TV? And I instantly went Plastic Man, Chucklevision, Michelangelo, Power Rangers, Boy Meets World, Kenan and Kel, Friends, Only Fools and Horses. Like instantly, like in the order in which I watched them, like, and I was like, oh, like it should be glaringly obvious, and I know I knew it before, but rewatching this really made me realize how much I was a TV kid, not a film kid.
Interesting. That is interesting. I've got a much bigger list of films like Short Circuit, Aladdin, Home Alone, Batteries Not Included. I mean, Batteries Not Included, dear Lord, one of my absolute favourites. I think I wore that tape through. The 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, which I can still remember scene to scene exactly what happens in that movie. I suspect this one falls more into the category of like films I loved but only vaguely remember, but like Neverending Story. For some reason, I really liked The Page Master.
I think like the only one of those, and it would be fascinating. Maybe if I go and dig out for the photos on YouTube, and so I'll see if I can dig out the old VHS of Honey I Shrunk, and that will make me see the other VHSs, and I might go, oh yeah, but even VHSs, like there was a lot of Power Rangers, there was a lot of Only Fools, like I had shitloads of VHSs, but there was I can't. Lady and the Tramp was a big one when I was really, really young.
Star Wars, obviously, for
fascinating.
me.
Yeah, Star Wars, to some extent. But
And then
again,
Who
not
Framed
as
Roger
much.
Rabbit?
Nah, that's still to this day I haven't seen it.
See, now Who Framed Roger Rabbit is another one I can quote top to bottom. Like I know that movie inside and out.
Ooh,
What was the one
Space
where the
Jam.
guy... Go on.
Space Jam was one. Space Jam was
Space Jam. I
really
saw
knew.
a lot. Oh, Basil the Great Mouse Detective.
I've never even heard of that.
It's one of Disney's ones. It's Sherlock, but he's a mouse.
Right, okay.
It's a Disney film. It's a good one.
Space Jam's another one though. Space Jam's another one though, where I say, oh yeah, Space Jam's one. Like I would have said, Honey I Shrunk the Kids is one. I can't really remember much. I remember the early stuff. I remember him looking down and falling down. I remember his arm really stretching, and I remember Wayne Knight a lot.
Do you remember The Land Before Time?
I know of it. Didn't see it.
Big? Tom Hanks movie?
Yeah, Big is one that I saw, but Big I didn't have on VHS. Mrs. Doubtfire was a big one.
Oh yeah,
but
Mrs.
again,
Doubtfire. That's a great
him breaking
film.
off the label, him testing the makeup, the mask falling and getting run over, and him having to use the cream, him breaking the thing off the Porsche, is it?
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of ending reveal and the really awkward dinner with the choking. Those are pretty much all I can
remember that movie. You know, that's another one I remember top to bottom. Like I remember my favorite.
The dinosaurs at the
one
beginning.
Of my favorite jokes is when they're by the pool and he throws the fucking coconut at Pierce Brosnan's head. And Pierce Brosnan turns around and he's like, "Oh, it was hooligans. They've gone that way." Like it's great. I love that movie so much. No, that's another one I remember top to bottom. So maybe what we're what's the one where the guy in a space where the guy shrinks down in a ship and goes into another guy's body? That one I saw on VHS. I had that on VHS. I watched that 100 times. Absolutely 100 times.
Can't remember.
3 Men and a Baby.
I remember. Yeah, my sister loved it, but
Which
not
by
so
the
much
way, maybe at some point we'll do something with that, because as Nadia reminded me yesterday, ultimately that movie is about a cocaine deal gone wrong. So is that a family film?
I can really remember as well Getting Even with Dad. I really remember that one.
Do you remember Babe?
Yes, had Babe. I found Babe quite boring, if memory serves.
Oh no, I love Babe. Free Willy?
No.
Hook! Hook!
No.
Man, come on, you must remember Hook. Like
I remember Hook, and I think I've seen it. But...
Oh my god, no. Matilda?
And yes, my sister, Babe and Matilda, were both VHSs my sister had. So
we forgot a big one as well. We forgot a big one. Jumanji.
Yeah, did love Jumanji. Could remember. I would class Jumanji as a film of my childhood. Yeah.
Mighty Ducks?
Nope, never seen it.
What? Homeward Bound?
Yeah. Nope, never seen it.
I'm just thinking through all my old VHSs at this point. Casper?
Yes, and I would, again, a sister purchase, but one I would remember. You know what I remember more than the first Casper? The sequel. There was a really weird, like, straight-to-video sequel, which 911 did a song on. I remember that one quite a bit.
I remember that song.
More than the film.
Yeah. Because that's the video where they're on the roller coaster, isn't it?
Yes, it's really weird because the original video, if memory serves, I might have this wrong, but the original video is just them on the roller coaster. And then when they put it on the Casper soundtrack, they re-released the video, but about halfway through, just start inserting Casper clips.
Yeah. Hocus Pocus?
So bizarre.
Do you remember Hocus Pocus?
Know of it, but haven't seen it.
That's another one I've got on.
I'll tell you another big one. Actually, this one I remember seeing at the cinema and loving, and then I remember getting it on VHS and watching it a lot on VHS as well. I really loved this movie. This would be another one I'd class. But interestingly, again, another one I'd class as a movie of my childhood, but if I watched it now, probably wouldn't remember much. Mouse Hunt.
Oh yeah, Mouse Hunt was good fun. Mouse Hunt. I don't remember that one intimately enough to have it as one of my films of my childhood, but yeah, that's a good one. I've got another one.
But Mouse Hunt, you're getting into territory of getting a little bit older. Like the older period, like Bruce Almighty. There's
Dr.
a lot of
Dolittle.
VHSs from that era. But I think we're talking that's late 90s, 2000s, if not even later. I don't know.
I've got one for you. Though,
So yeah,
Chris.
but
no, I've got one for you, Chris. That's definitely on your list of films you've seen multiple times.
Go on.
The Santa Claus.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, weirdly, I only think of that in the context of Christmas. But when I thought about the films, Back to the Future, Toy Story, and then the next film I thought of was Santa Claus.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, a Goofy movie. That's a big one for my kid.
I've never seen it.
I remember
So there you go.
Yeah. I'm
So
trying to think
that's
of
us
any more.
listing. I mean, we could be here, all day, Dan.
So many good ones. Anyway, right, let's do this one then.
Well,
what was your immediate reaction to watching it this time then? Did it hold up to your childhood wonder? Because I'm going to tell you now that Dan enjoyed this film a lot more.
My immediate reaction was, animated intro.
Now, that I was waiting for, because they do that on Honey, I Blew Up as well, if memory serves. And
You think they do?
And for some reason, in Honey, I Blew Up, that sticks out more to me. So I was like, I'm pretty sure they do it on this one as well. It's a lot more elaborate for the next one, I think, though.
Was it more of a thing back then than I remember? Because I can only remember Grease having an animated intro.
It was a pretty big thing. Pink Panther did it. The Pink Panther movies all did it. And that's where that character came from. The animated version, I should say.
The difference with the Grease one though is it represents similar things that happen in the movie, and the characters look like the characters, whereas in this one they're doing shit they don't do in the movie, and they don't really look like the kids either.
Who needs that?
It's very bizarre.
It is weird.
I'll give you an overview. I enjoyed it. I had a good time, but I probably partly enjoyed it because of nostalgia. I think there's some bizarre plot stuff which we'll get into where they beautifully quick example, and hopefully we'll talk about it in more detail. They beautifully set up that Nick has a box of cookies that he is eating, so that later on when they find a giant cookie, you're not going, oh, how long's that been there? How did that get there? Da-da-da-da-da. That's done quite well. There's other exampmes of that.
My favorite example is the lawnmower kid.
Yeah, because you almost forget about him.
Yeah, well, we didn't, because I said to Nadia, I said, hey up. Well, that's coming back later. I made a bad joke about setups and payoffs.
But some stuff, like character stuff, they then don't, which we'll get to. But I had a good time with it. I did enjoy it. I think actually the real effects don't hold up fairly well. The special effects, so big animatronic bug actually looks okay. Doesn't look great, but you would see it on a TV show and probably give it a pass. The animated bugs flying in the air, the hold up a little less. Like, yeah. What were your overall thoughts? And then we'll go deep.
Oh God, we're going deep. I'm so scared.
Obviously,
hold me. So
I've written notes.
Oh God. Oh, he's got notes, everyone. He's got notes. All right. Jesus, now I don't even know where to start. No, I think it's fun. It's light fun. It's pretty. I think it's actually weirdly forgettable. I think that's a part of it. I don't think it's actually that great a film. I think it captures your imagination as a kid, but that comes, I think, more from the concepts than the execution. I think the idea of being little and the giant cookie and befriending an ant and all that stuff. That all just,
mate, even if you want to get really deep, even being allowed to spending time away from parents, and like in the case of the older kids, essentially having a sleepover with the person they fancy. The parents wouldn't allow that, but in this, do you know what I mean? There's a certain wish fulfillment of kids out on their own, having adventures without their parents from the younger kids, and then from the older kids of being able to like fall for each other or whatever in peace away from everyone and all of that stuff. So even there's a spectacle wish fulfillment, but also I think an adventure wish fulfillment as well.
Yeah, I think like that. Just going on an adventure. I mean, that I think you're tying up a lot of your personal feelings for the Amy character. Is it Amy? Yeah.
I did. When the character came on, I was said to Jess, I was like, I'm pretty sure I fancied Amy as a kid. And obviously that was fine. I was a kid. Like, I don't.
You don't need to
fancy
keep
her
repeating
now.
that.
Huh?
You don't need to keep repeating that. Otherwise, I'll be
just
adding
like to
it to the
make
big
it-
book of things Chris will ultimately say in his court case.
You need clarity these days. Again, we were children watching this.
Jesus. Right. So for me, I think it captures. So for example, you look at a film like Home Alone, and I think Home Alone does a better job of engaging adults as well as kids. I get the impression this film was the reason that I stopped watching any of these films at an earlier age and therefore have worse memories of it, is because I think these films do appeal at a higher percentage rate to children than Back to the Future, or what was the other example I literally just gave that I've now forgotten?
Home Alone. Home Alone's without getting too Home Alone. Home Alone though has a risk for me. Well, one, I think Home Alone has an advantage there of being a Christmas movie. There's a sense in December of let's watch Home Alone. So I think that has helped.
The wish fulfillment stuff is only about 30% of the movie.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say with the risk. Home Alone, like when you rewatch Home Alone, it's like because I remember as a kid watching Home Alone and being bored by quite a bit of it until it got to the stuff in the end. And older, you can appreciate the setup and all of that stuff. But I can see some kids thinking Home Alone is a little boring.
Mm-hmm.
Until like you say, the last 30 minutes. When it's crazy how little of that film is actually him defending the home.
So there's the opening. And then there's like the section when he's just been left alone. That's fun for a kid to watch, because then that's a bit of wish fulfillment.
That's fair.
Because he's like, he's putting on aftershave and he's jumping on the bed and he's he's shopping for himself and he's just buying sweets or whatever. Like, like all that stuff.
Fair.
That stuff's like good for kids too. And the same with the second Home Alone, like some of the stuff where he's loose in New York for a bit before it gets
with
to the
a
more
credit
serious
card.
stuff. Yeah, that's fun too. But I agree that there's a closer balance there, because when you watch that as an adult, you know, you're thinking about the parents and you're going, Jesus, what a great story this is about this family separated and this mother who's so desperate to get back to her son. That whole B plot really plays well when you're older.
Yeah.
Which I guess you just don't care about when you're a kid. You're like, oh yeah, great. His mum's, don't come back. He's having fun. Leave him alone. You know, you're,
I think it's
like,
'cause
she's met John Candy. Great. Like, can we get back to the kid with his traps, please? He's definitely deadly traps. So
it might be a personal thing, because I think I knew of Home Alone before I saw it. I don't know if my parents were particularly cautious with films, because we actively weren't allowed to see Jurassic Park. Maybe it was the same.
I was
Home
taken
Alone,
to see Jurassic Park in the cinema. One of my first ever films in the cinema. I was so convinced if I touched the screen, I could fall into the film.
Our mums have the same name, but clearly different approaches to movies. When we were kids,
I'm pretty sure my mum was unsure of me going to see Jurassic Park, but my auntie took me anyway.
Your auntie sounds like a lot of fun, man. She had Sky. She was taking you to Jurassic Park. I knew it before I saw it. I knew of it as the movie where the kid sets loads of traps for burglars. So I think for me, watching it for the first time, I was like, when are we getting to that? But I suppose you're right. If you're just watching it, actually the Home Alone element of it is probably quite entertaining.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying.
I mean, essentially my point stands though, which is that I think the reason Home Alone stands up better as an overall family movie is it's got a better balance of things for both the young and the old to get. And I think whereas this film focuses, and not wrongly so, not a criticism, just an observation, that it focuses more on the wish fulfillment and the kid stuff. I mean, they get shrunk real early in the movie, and then there's lots of shrunken adventures throughout the film. And even when it gets to the grown-ups, they make that stuff quite hyper-aware and silly to keep kids entertained. Like it's, Rick Moranis, in the garden, hung up from the that sort of contraption he's built with his goggles on, trying to find them in the grass as he swings around, and the other more sensible adults looking at him like he's a crazy person. Like that was funny to me as a kid,
That shot where they're on the ground small and Rick Moranis appears big behind them with the magnifying glass and just misses them by a fraction is brilliant. That is a brilliant shot. Yeah. It looks great. Yeah. And there's a lot of it that looks great. I think you're right. I think the parents, the thing, there's a few things with the parents, one of which ties into the beginning of the film, so we can talk about it in a sec. But the parents also, when you're an adult, you kind of go, you're not reacting right to this. You're reacting.
I mean, that's true of a lot of parents from these old family movies, though, don't you think?
I know, but even the bit where the mum sees the police outside the neighbours, looks panicked, rushes in, and then immediately phones the police. I don't know, why would you not just go round there and go, oh, by the way, my kids are missing too? Why would you look panicked? The only explanation for that is, oh, they phoned the police, we should probably phone the police as well. What? Working it out, it's a fairly big leap for him to be like, oh, the chair's shrunk, there's a slight split in one of the bin bags, the kids are definitely shrunken in the garden.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess. Because he has to link together not just the machine being turned on and working, but he has to then remember that he swept.
Yeah. But that's done quite well when he's on the floor, Nick, Amy, and then hits the brush. That's quite cool.
You know what? That's fair. That's fair.
Just quickly, did you think the animation intro was a bit more violent and bizarre than the film? They're in the toaster, there's knives. It felt more like a montage of Ant-Man and the Wasp than anything else.
Honestly, for me, that was quite par for the course back in the day. Because basically, this is back in the day before. So now when you watch credits for a movie, there's the colourful, interesting credits, and then it goes to the boring black and white scrolling ones. Well, back in the day, the colourful, interesting credits went at the start of the movie for 10 minutes first. So I remember sitting. I remember watching Space Jam in the cinema. I saw Space Jam in the cinema like 4 times. Because I got weirdly lucky. I saw it in England when we were on holiday, like twice, and then we moved. Then I went back to Ireland where I actually was living at the time, and it hadn't come out there yet. So I was like the only kid at school that had seen Space Jam, which briefly made me the coolest kid in school.
That's why they hated you.
Yeah, it is. That's why they hated me.
They thought you were lying. You were that guy on Reddit screaming that your spoilers were true, and people were disbelieving you. That the film comes out, and you're like, oh, Luke really does Skype into the battle. Who knew?
Yeah, yeah. Oh god, that was a good. That was took me a second to realize what the fuck you were talking about then. But yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough. Well, it's
not a deep cut, but
but I remember sitting watching Space Jam in the cinema, and like the intro credits. You wanna jam? Welcome to the jam. Everybody get up! It's time to jam now. And I'm just like watching, it's like fucking hell. This is. Can we get to Bugs Bunny, please? And it's like it lasts like 6 minutes, was what it feels like. But that used to be at the front of almost all movies. Whoever finally went, let's put them at the end. Mwah! Yeah. I love you. You're the best. Because but so it was quite common for them to find. If you've not seen the movie yet, they just wanted to do something visually interesting that would tease what the movie might contain to you.
Yeah, it does. It does work.
So
but
a few
it's
different
funny
films resorted to that sort of tactics.
Yeah, not remembering. I'd forgotten about Space Jam. Space Jam's a good example. It's just it was interesting, or at the very least of note to me, that it almost felt like it was done like the theme. The theme introduction, the intro, the opening titles to a TV show. It felt more like than a movie. But I suppose you're right with the context. More common than you were remembering, though. No, that's fair. Well, as we've established,
I think Batteries Not Included had an animated intro. I think Pink Panther had an animated intro. I know Blew Up has, but that's obviously just following suit. I don't think that's as uncommon. I think that was just like what they would do is they would like. It'd be more about just proof of concept, like not actually directly, because you've not seen the movie yet, so there's no point in referencing things you're about to see. So it was kind of like, it was a different approach to it back then, I think. So yeah.
A lot of those shows, films I've not seen, so it could just be that.
Yeah.
So in terms of, and I know it's not deliberate at all, by the way, but I love that between Space Jam and Home Alone, it's almost like you want to talk about any movie but Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Well, it's frames of reference, I think.
No, it's context. It's context. I'm joking. It's absolutely context. Don't worry. I'm just playing with you. So, the beginning of the movie, I think
bro, it's 38 minutes, mate. We're at the beginning of the movie. We've got problems.
I know. That's, and I love, because this is, again, it's opposites. There are times where I'm like, right, Dan's got to do something. I want to eat. It's fine. We're not gonna be too. Maybe a 45-minuter, and then you'll say something about the beginning, and I'll maybe then reference something about the end of an episode of whatever we're talking about, and then you'll be like, yeah. So taking us back to minute 7, this happens, and I'm like, fuck me, we're gonna go. There is a theme I've noticed.
There is a new theme I've noticed, and people keep attributing it to both of us, but every time someone brings it up in the comments, it always comes out of your mouth, but the sentence, not much to say about this one, comes out of your mouth an awful lot.
Yeah. And I feel
it's
like
usually at the front of a podcast that's multiple hours long.
This time it's coming out of your mouth, and I'm the one like, no, Dad. I was ready an hour early for this. I'm pumped. So but no, there's not too. Honestly, I haven't got notes for every scene. But this is. Oh shit! I knocked my mic. This is incredibly relevant. The film opens with. Is it Diane? I think it's Diane, isn't it?
I can't. If you're asking me to remember the characters' names, yeah, Diane, sure.
Yeah, with Wayne and Diane.
Yes, it is Diane.
Having
just checked it.
It is Diane. Cool.
Yeah, because I've got the IMDb up for trivia later, so I was able to check quite quickly.
Diane has spent the night at her mum's or her sister's or something. Like, they're things are so bad between them. She's sleeping in a different house from her husband and kids.
This was a big problem for me.
They're not in a good way, right? And that plot, it is forgotten about. Seemingly the only scene, because then, right, okay, yeah, that's it, right. So
but then she rings, and she's just like, Mum's on the phone, and it's like a normal conversation, no reference of a fight.
I didn't mind that so much.
This film's got such ADHD that it forgets that plot. The next scene.
See, I don't quite agree with that, because that's essentially them not being good, because that phone call ends with her being like, I'll get back later and we'll talk. That, I think, is her going, I'm pissed off, but you've got this big talk, you've got this big lecture, I'm gonna wish you luck.
It is okay, even if I give you that, it is then literally never referenced again.
Well, here's the thing, so this is what I was gonna say. So they're starting at a bad point, right? If Jess and I had a child and we'd fallen out so badly that she left for the night and wasn't happy with me, whatever. And was like, I'll get back later and we'll need to talk, right? If she then came home to have that talk and thrash that out and discovered that I'd shrunk the kids, I'm willing to bet that she's going to be even more pissed off with me. It's going to be even angrier.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm aware, the only slight sense of resolution for that plot, the only thing they even vaguely give us, is he falls asleep at the shrinking machine and she walks in, looks at him, and for no reason at all, really, goes, God, I love you, Wayne Selinsky. And it's like, oh, so that's it then? That's all he had to do, was it? Accidentally put the kids in mortal danger. And now you've realised you love him.
Because he's trying so hard to save their lives.
Yeah,
bravo,
it's
Wayne.
Probably
bravo.
The most.
You're a hero to us all.
Exactly. It's hitting someone with your car, but then phoning the ambulance. Well, he did phone the ambulance. Yeah, but he hit them with the car. Yeah, but he phoned the ambulance. He was caring. All right. There are other ones which we can talk about, because what is commendable is that they kind of do give every character an emotional subplot or something they're dealing with, and all the others are not resolved well or resolved in bizarre ways. But that one is the most egregious in terms of not really being resolved or just being ignored. Like, of all the emotional character plot dodginess, I think that's probably the worst.
It is, because it's also like it's take the scenes from the beginning of the movie out. Like if it doesn't go anywhere, it's not relevant to the plot, and it doesn't help us learn anything about the characters. We understand immediately from the fact that he's rushing off to this big conference thing that he's a man that's put his work ahead of his family occasionally. We don't need to set that in stone by saying, oh, well, he's so headstrong about this stuff. His wife basically leaving him. That's strong for what this is. Too strong.
Yeah, too strong. And you could have, you even have, because there's that bizarre scene where the people she's sold the house to come over. You have her be an estate agent. If it's purely to get her out the way, so all of this other stuff can happen, then she's trying to sell a house that's far away. And she phones him to wish him luck. Like, you literally do that, and it just resolves all of that. Because if at the end of the day, if they're a happy, loved up couple,
she doesn't need to be showing a house far away. How about this? The movie opens. He's having to get the kids out to bed in the morning. Which, by the way, we'll talk about this in a second. But he lives in Wallace and Gromit's house, and I'm calling copyright infringement. I
actually like that for a reason I'll say about. But
we'll get into that. But so. How about this? The movie opens up. He's got to get the kids out of bed and to school or whatever, or get them up and get sorted. But he's got his own stuff and he's balancing those two. She calls. Mum's on the phone. He picks up the phone. She's at the house. you can see her in the foreground, and in the background you see the couple that reappear later, and she goes, "Oh, they're still umming and ahhing over this house." Anyway, you out the door with the kids, or it's like, "How's everything at home?" "Yeah, it's good. We're doing this, that, and that." "Okay, cool. Good luck with your presentation." Click. Then we've established why she's not at the house. We've set up the couple that show up later in the movie, and we have not set up a plot that will never go anywhere.
Yeah, a plot that's there for no real reason. Like none. Yeah. It's really bizarre. The inventor thing, I actually liked that, because often when the Wallace and Gromit thing, I actually think it's really clever, because often when you see movies or shows with inventors, it's a fine balance between showing they're an inventor and good at what they do and making you go, why is this family not multi-millionaires, and why hasn't he sold that technology? Whereas here, they do a really good job of going, he's an inventor, he's good at what he does, but he hasn't invented anything of use. So I actually think, and that says a lot about the character. I don't know how deliberate it was, but I actually think that element of it was quite good.
Yeah, they do that in the first Gremlins movie. Which is another movie from my childhood that I can quote back and forth.
Never seen it.
Oh my god. Oh, we should do that at some point. You would love that film. It's a great film. That film gave me nightmares.
We could not bomb it, but we could do. I did think for the Patreons once a month we could watch a movie from our childhood. But anyway, it's a separate thing.
Well, we'll see if people like this then. Gremlins would definitely be on that list. Yeah. I love Gremlins. But in Gremlins, the dad's an inventor, and he's a useless inventor, and he's invented like a toothpaste dispenser, like a weird ashtray that spins around, but if it spins too fast, the ash all pops out of it anyway. So like that, they've done that. I've seen that before quite a few times. Like an inventor that's like good in the sense of, well, I suppose he's not good though, because his inventions are actually bad. Like they don't function the way you want them to. Like the toothpaste dispenser actually like squirts toothpaste out at you. I suppose you're right here that they make sure that you know that Wayne's stuff functions, but you just go, there's not really much of a practical use for that invention. But now I'm thinking about it, so they've got a thing that does the toast for them. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
And then she pushes a button and it makes a bell go off in his office that says, "Come down for breakfast." Actually, what else is there? That might be it.
To which he faxes a response. No, there's something weird where they've got a finger on the phone, and then the phone, it hangs up for them, and the dog is able to get his own doggy treats.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's still nothing that would make them... You can see why he's a struggling inventor. You can see why he's got a career... Yeah. But why he's equally I think that I quite liked that element of it. What did you before we talk about their plots? I mean, please tell me you thought this as well. The guy who plays the Thompson dad, he must have been so annoyed when 5 years later Jim Carrey became a star. Because he's doing Jim Carrey in 1989 before Jim Carrey's 1994 peak. He's doing Jim Carrey. Yeah, I think he's. Did you not get Jim Carrey vibes?
No.
Oh fuck! I got a lot of them. He's might as well have gone, alrighty then. Like he's like when the door closed and he's like, I can hear it. I can't think of specific examples now because it was a few
legitimately
days ago
there are two characters in this that we did name after other existing people that we found them so absurdly reminiscent of that we found it hard to watch the movie without calling them that. And to this point, I cannot actually tell you the names of his two sons because we called them Logan and Jake Paul the entire movie.
I think they're slightly better people than Logan and Jake Paul, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Honestly, no, come on, the older kid is a spit of Logan Paul. Absolutely spit of him. It's like,
are you talking looks wise, not in behaviour?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Looks wise, right. Oh no, I don't think the dude looks like Jim Carrey. I think his mannerisms throughout the entire film are so phenomenally Jim Carrey.
they're not exaggerated enough for me to have made that call. I can see where you're coming from, though. There is an element of it, but I think it's Jim Carrey's whole shtick was like taking that to 10, and this guy was only taking it to about a 5.
That's fair. Yeah,
If Jim Carrey had been
fair,
in this movie, he'd have been hopping all over the place and like, doing his whole like very overly physical body, like, like all the little like the sort of weird movements he does and stuff, and like there's none of that in this. So I don't think it's necessary. He's got a voice kind of like him, so I guess he delivers a couple of lines in a Jim Carrey-esque way, but he's not got the physicality of Jim Carrey.
Yeah. The spoilers, obviously, but let's do because my other slightly egregious character point. But again, I commend the movie for the young guy who's called Russ Jr. Maybe, I don't know.
Yes.
But the young
I just pulled it up on IMDb because I cannot remember that. Yeah, so there's cool. Big Russ is the dad, and Little Russ is the kid.
So I love that. So Big Russ, and so what's the other kid called?
So it's Little Russ.
Which one's
and Ron?
But which one's which? Is Little Russ the older one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Little Russ, again, quite good casting. They've got like Big Russ is so tall, and Little Russ he's just so much shorter than him and stuff. Which for what they're trying to do with their dynamic, the whole plot of he wants him to be a footballer, wants him to be like him, and the other kid doesn't really know what he's good at, where his place is. He quits football. He doesn't want to tell him. And then obviously it's not overtly mentioned, but by the end of the movie, he's been a hero. He's jumped on flying bees. He's got the girl. Fine. That's quite nice. His younger brother, you've got the plot of everyone's kind of ignoring him at the beginning and no one's making a kind of thing for him, but then he bonds with the neighbours, he bonds with his brother. That's quite cool. Amy Selinsky wants to go to the mall, wants to get the guy she thinks is cool to ask her out, and that's what's important. But by the end of the film, the boy next door, who doesn't appear to be the coolest, but is normal and nice, she's with him, great. So all of those fine, and like I said, I actually think the relationship between the Thompson father and son is done quite well. I
also think the relationship between Wayne and Big Russ is done really well, because they open the movie with them bickering about like the noise and stuff, and like when it cuts at the end of the movie, and I know I'm jumping, but when it cuts to the end of the movie to them like it's like Christmas or whatever, and they're hanging out.
Yeah.
Even now, I went, oh, that's kind of sweet. That's nice.
Yeah.
The families that worked out. What a nice little plot that is.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really nicely done. I think all of them, apart from all of the character stuff, is actually, even though some of it isn't overt, there's a lot of me reading into it with the plot of the boy of the older Thompson kid, Russ Jr., not really knowing who he is, and then kind of finding that more by the end of the film. I don't know if Jess would have necessarily read that the same way. So you have to do a bit of work, but I think it's all there.
Yeah.
The missed opportunity, I think, apart from the ridiculous argument between the Selinsky parents, is so at the beginning, you have Nick try and give a theory about the machine to his dad, and his dad refuses to listen.
Correct.
And then his dad is kind of ignoring Nick. And then they get shrunk. And at the end of the movie, Nick yells, "It's the ball, it's the ball," alongside everyone else, by the way. Wayne sees the ball. The ball has been pointed out to him by Nick. And then they unshrink him. And Wayne's like, "Nick, you're a genius. You saw the ball." Like, what? The ball, why not just make it, and potentially this is what they were going for, and I've missed it, but why not make it just a bit more explicitly clear that the ball, still have the ball do it, but make it explicitly clear that whatever the ball ended up doing is exactly what Nick was suggesting he did in the beginning of the movie. And rather than just have Nick tell him where the fucking ball is, have Nick go, "It's the ball and the ball did this," and have Wayne realise that what his son said all along was absolutely right, and he should involve him more and listen to him more. I feel like just having
I don't
having
think
him
the
point
kid
to the
solving,
ball is not enough.
I don't think a kid solving shrinking at that age over his dad, who's an actual qualified scientist, is a good way to go. That feels extremely unrealistic and very strange. I think what they should have done maybe is make it clearer that it's Nick that puts the two together at the end of the movie, and not have all the kids shouting it's the ball. Have Nick be specifically the one that sees the ball and goes, oh, but the ball reduced the heat. Like, Dad, it's the ball. It's the ball. And then he goes, what are you saying? Like, it's the ball. Oh, the ball. You're right. Like, you know, like, the problem they have, though, is they've established early in the movie, and they need this to be true, that they're too small to be heard. So what ends up having to happen is Nick has to draw the other kids in to help mime out baseball.
Yeah, fair enough.
And as a result, it doesn't really feel like Nick's the one that puts that together, which is a problem, because for that plot to feel resolved, you want Nick to be the one that figures it out. So
yeah, exactly.
What I think they should have done maybe is had Nick work it out and find like a snapped off stub of a pencil or something and write it so it's Nick communicating with his dad rather than anything else, because I think the way they've done it is problematic. Because it hurts the plot. I can see where you're going with the idea that he was trying to like help his dad figure it out, and like his dad ignored him. I think the important thing is that his dad ignored him. I think making him right then would have been really strange. For me, I think I'd have been like, wait, the kid's a better inventor than his dad? Like, his dad's a qualified scientist, surely. Like, this is...
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But I still think they should have made it clear at the end, though, that it was Nick that solved the problem. Because I think then...
Yeah.
Because that's just his dad being... That's great, because why that works for me, or that would have worked more clear if they'd done it more clearly for me, is that it's not that his dad couldn't have figured that out. It's that he's often missing the things that are right in front of him. Like, he didn't put the two and two together. So he's a great scientist, but he sometimes lacks that sort of common sense to apply what he's observing to it. So like whereas his son, who isn't a trained scientist yet, who doesn't have degrees and qualifications yet, has that skill his dad is missing, and is not missing the thing that's directly under his nose. And that the baseball wasn't coincidental, you know. That would have been a better resolve for me. But I agree with what you're saying, though. I think that's the plot that comes across the weakest of the character stuff. And I will say, I was actually quite impressed when it all ended that they'd done as much character work as they did. Because, again, my memory of the movie is a lot of, like, adventures in the garden.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and even, like... And they're actually really clever with that in the writing. It's actually quite a bold move to, when the kids get split up, it's actually the perfect pairs that they put them in. Because you could have gone down the siblings squabbling route. You could have gone down the two young kids that don't really get on because they're clearly two different types of kids with different interests, or the teenagers fancying each other route.
Yep.
Actually, the way more interesting thing is to put the Thompson brother with Nick, and the annoying Thompson younger brother with Amy. It's way more interesting, and it also means that...
Well, it means that Amy can save the brother.
Yeah, it means that Russ Jr. can save the brother as well. Like, both of them save each other. They have some really, like, amusing moments with each other. There's quite good banter between Ron and Amy. Like, you know, when he's like, it's a dream, and she hits him and stuff.
I would argue
like,
it's probably the least predictable combination. So I think...
Exactly.
I don't think I remembered that they got split up.
No, I didn't. No.
And when they did, I remember thinking, that is not how I would have done that. And then I thought about it, I went, but it is the best way to do it. So I think it's what's good about that is it's the best for the story, but also it's the least predictable. So that isn't that great when in storytelling you can manage that, where you can both be surprising and hit the right note. Because often the reason something's predictable is because that's really the way it should be to make the plot further the right way, and audiences have become aware of that. So you end up in this weird situation where your options are something predictable but it's the right thing for the story, or something unpredictable but then your story is chaos and not in a good way. Whereas this is actually a nice balance of, it's actually kind of, it's the unpredictable thing to do, but it's also the right thing to do for the story. And I think, I agree with you. I think it works really well. And again, the script is really good. It's a really well done script. Like, there's a lot to it, for sure.
Did you think there was slightly more, and actually found a point in the characters, what's so impressive as well is it means that genuinely each character gets a moment with each other. And I know fundamentally there's only kind of 8 characters, essentially, but it's still very impressive. Like, the character work, as you say, is really great. In terms of the script, was there, and I suppose this is true of all movies of this era, but were you surprised by some of the more adult content in there? So I'm thinking specifically of the French class thing, which isn't that bad. But the two that really stood out to me were when Ron says to Amy, I hope you're the kind of kid that I hope ends up on a milk carton or something to that effect.
Which is
and I was like, whoa.
That is savage.
Yeah, I was like, jeez, whoa. And then the other one, which is just nuts. And to be honest with you, this entire scene doesn't need to be in the movie. But when the couple that the Thompsons are going camping with appear, and Big Russ has to give an excuse, and he says that his wife is ill because of plumbing. Oh, God. Like, that whole scene in general doesn't need to be there. But the plumbing thing, oh, did that stand out to you as well?
Because also, I don't understand why. The thing I had a problem with that scene was like, I'm sorry, but my kids are missing is a much better excuse. Like,
yeah,
and also,
I know, but also, fundamentally, it feels like the scene is only there to highlight his annoyance at losing the money, but he should be more worried about his kids than losing the money. Whole scene is
but not only that,
redundant.
It's $80, which me and Nadia did the math, and that in today's standards is like $100 and something. I think. Let me just double check that actually. $80. I'm gonna double check my math now so I don't say something stupid.
Well, you're factoring in inflation and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So $80 today is, come on. Oh dear, that's not worked out as quickly as I wanted it to at all. $155 today with inflation. Have you seen their house? Have you seen their RV? $155 is probably not that big a deal.
I know, it's such a weird scene.
That is a reasonably big house. They've got this big fancy RV. A deposit of $150 is not the end of the world. But that's what me and Annie were baffled at. Is just like the biggest problem with that scene is, first of all, it's not a believable amount of money lost. It's just not. It's not believable that would be that big of a fuss. But second of all, mate, how is your wife having issues feeling not well because of plumbing or whatever? How is that a better excuse than our kids are literally missing?
And you know what? Maybe they on some level, or maybe not even on some level, maybe they flat out recognised what you were talking about earlier, about there not really being anything for the parents, and maybe the plumbing the plumbing thing is an attempt to do that, but it's misjudged. It's not good.
No, badly judged. Very badly judged.
It's because equally, you have the characters like, like look, you have the wife looking at Wayne and stuff, but you don't do anything with those two looking at Wayne confused that you don't do with the people that are buying the house. So it really is completely redundant, that entire scene, and it's got that horrible plumbing joke, and but it's just between that and the milkshake, the milk carton stuff. I was like, oh, there is some riskier humor in it that I realised.
But it never seems to work. I don't think the French joke works that well either, to be honest with you. By the time he references it right at the end of the movie, which is, by the way, bold move. Your end, they're all sat
really
around.
Weird.
They're going, right, we need a funny line to end the movie on, guys. We really want to hit this one out of the park, right? Last thing, it's the thing people are going to walk out the cinema thinking of most recently. It's the thing that happens right at the end. Do we end on the sweet note of the families, becoming friends after all of this adventure, after all of this turmoil, after all this fun and chaos? No, we'll go out on a joke about French kissing, I think. That makes sense,
so
right?
Weird.
That makes sense.
Much better would have been for them to be sat round the table and then you just hear the noise and he reappears with the giant turkey.
Yeah. Great.
There's a lot of things that would have been better, to be honest. But even the big dog biscuit
that
would have been fine.
in a room, and they're just like, "Woof, you got it, nailed it, well done.
Weird.
We're going to La Jelly today, boys. He's figured it out.
So weird.
That's how we're ending the movie.
It's such a weird ending to the movie. So bizarre. Let's talk special effects, Dan. Do you agree with my summation that the practical effects still kind of hold up, but the visual effects not so much?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a little bit of a mixed bag when it comes to the visual effects, but I think some of the visual effects work really well too. I think they did enough.
The shrinking looks great.
I think they did a lot of stuff. Yeah, I'd say practical effects are almost all functional these days, from functional to just outright good. Like some of the visual stuff works really well when they're shrunk. So that's the practical effects are almost like 100% hit rate on like stand out and what still function today. Yeah, you're right on some of the visual effects. Some of the like green screening is pretty off, and the keying isn't great. But I think on the whole, even those have a sort of 50% hit rate. So I think the visual effects on the whole in this movie are kind of amazing. Like I think the visual effects department for this film, both digitally and practically, really should be patting themselves on the back even today. I was amazed at how good some of that stuff looked. Like I said, particularly the ant, which, by the way, we haven't talked about the ant. I love that plot that they befriend an ant. I think that's one of my favorite things. But Jesus Christ, dark. They kill the ant.
But the ant dies protecting them in a fight with a scorpion.
Which, by the way, I can't speak for America because obviously don't live there. But I mean, Americans in the audience, please comment below. Do you get many scorpions in the back garden? Is that common?
Not in that. I read after that about that, and no, not in that area. The scorpion thing, a lot of people have been like, yeah, that's bizarre.
Why was it?
And there's also something like the size dimensions. The size dimensions aren't quite right. Like, based on how big they are compared to the Lego, they should be a lot smaller than the scorpion and the ant, or something like that. But
yeah,
anyway.
the sizes are all over the place. I mean, if they're think about them, even in just forget the scorpion and the ant for a second. If they're that big compared to a Lego, think how a Cheerio would have been to him. Yeah. He wouldn't have been floating in the Cheerio the way he does in the movie, or even at the end of the film when they're just on the table. Like if you'd have put a Lego brick on that table, it would have been much smaller in relation to them than it is in the part of the movie when they sleep in one. Like, so yeah, that's a whole problem. But I mean, my bigger issue actually was either Rick Moranis can't do math or his kid can't. One of them is wrong, because at one point the kid does the math and says it's 3 miles to the house by their relevant, related to their. In relation to their size, the distance now is relatively speaking 3 miles. And then Rick Moranis does it later in the movie and says it must be 11 miles. Now, I'm hoping Rick Moranis is right, because 3 miles could be done. I mean, the average walking speed is 4 miles an hour. So you'd be home in... with no obstacles in the way, you'd be home within an hour. I mean, okay, put the obstacles in the way, blah, blah, blah. 2 hours is a bit of a stretch. Unless they were basically crawling, it shouldn't have taken them a day, essentially, to get home. 11 miles, on the other hand, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. 11 miles feels a lot righter. A lot better.
A lot more righter.
I don't
Chris
know
Billingham podcast for everyone. A lot more righter.
There we go. Podcast gold. I agree with you. Visually, it's good. So my question is, because you said at the beginning, and don't worry, I've got more specific points. We're not done. But you said at the I'm intrigued now though, because you said at the beginning, child Dan enjoyed this a lot more than adult Dan.
Yes.
But you've complimented the visuals and you've complimented the character work. Mm-hmm. So what was your beef? What is your problem?
There's no beef as such. It's just that I don't get any fulfillment out of it anymore.
Right.
So there's some nice character work, which is to be noted, and a couple of really good jokes. There's one right out the gate. There's something she says on the phone about an ex-boyfriend or something that I just. Like it was like it knocked it straight out of the park. There was like one of the first lines of the movie, and I was like, "That is a home run joke." Like I can't remember what it was now. I'll look it up in a minute, I'll find it in a minute. But I was just like, "That's brilliant! How funny is that?" And yet, like the rest of the movie not quite as strong with the hit rate on jokes. But no, I just think that there's nothing really for an adult in this movie. The character work is good, it's very well done, but let's be honest, that is a small percentage of the movie. The visual effects are good to look at, but 2 hours of looking at visual effects isn't going to win anyone over either. So what's left when you're a kid, which ties those two things together, is the wish fulfillment and the excitement and stuff. But as an adult watching that, I'm like, okay, they slid down a blade of grass, fun. Okay, they're eating a giant cookie. I mean, I'm an adult. I could just go out and buy some cookies. In fact, we did. We ate Oreos while watching the movie, actually, to be fair.
You can't pick off a bit of cookie and scoop up cookie cream with it. Like,
yeah, but I could buy a shit ton of them and stick them all together and make a giant one if I wanted. Doesn't matter. I'm a grown-up. I do what I like.
You couldn't make a cookie. You could not practically make a cookie that big.
No, not as big as the thing they were looking at, but I could make a thing that it fit in my hands that way, though.
You'd have to get the amount of cream on there that he.
Yeah, I'm spending a good 10-20 quid on Oreos for sure to do that, no doubt.
Yeah,
but I could. It's not out of the realms of my. Do you know what I mean? Like that childhood wish fulfillment thing of just as much sweets as you want, because that is essentially what that is. Or, that kind of freedom. Like, that's great when you're a kid, but you don't get anything out of that. And it is the majority of the movie.
And then there is also an element of, like, as an adult, I mean, they weren't even... And I do remember thinking this as a kid, actually. They're not even at the cookie for that long to get enough... Like, they should be hungrier and more dehydrated than they are. Like, they've had about 5 seconds with a big cookie. They've each had a mouthful at most, and that's all they've had for pretty much 24 hours, it seems.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's really true. Yeah.
Even the practicalities of I love that they kind of, it's like, oh, people are probably going to be thinking about the logistics. We should probably have a scene that references them going to the toilet. Should we? Okay, fine.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like, so it's just such a bulk of the movie is just the wish fulfillment adventure-y stuff, and I don't get as much out of that as and because that's such a large part of the movie, I think if they'd wanted to keep my interest better, maybe the character work, maybe actually extend that somewhat. I mean, what's there works really well. Could they have not maybe done more scenes focused on that? Maybe a little bit less focused on the silliness. And I think, I think that's pretty much the crux of it. But to be fair though, again, there's nothing wrong with it. None of that stuff is bad, but young Dan had a lot more fun with this film than older Dan. Because
I still
joke-wise as well, actually, even the jokes are very hit and miss in this film.
Yeah, I think that is fair.
Like the dialogue,
the big example I can think of is the French class thing. But yeah,
yes, because every other joke, there's so many throwaway jokes. They're just like they're so non-jokes. They're not even like they're not funny. But you wouldn't be saying that for any reason other than to try and make your audience laugh. And it's like, okay, that didn't land.
Yeah, that's fair. I think we've actually covered a lot of I think we've naturally covered all the stuff I wrote down after watching it.
Good. I still want to come back to the ant, though. I'm sorry. You can't just...
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
You can't just kill... Oh, no, again.
Whoa. Dan. We're not done. Like, at this point, 1 hour 15... We might as well make it 90 minutes, and then it's the length of the movie. So don't worry, I'm not trying to wrap us up, baby. Carry on.
Well, let's talk about the ant briefly. Can you kill the pet?
No, let's not talk about the ant briefly, Dan. Let's go into detail and depth about the ant.
Well, no, I've got trivia yet, mate. Don't worry, we're hitting 90 no matter what we do now. I've got a fair bit of trivia to get through. But I'm legitimately...
This is the most relaxed I've ever been about a podcast going on for ages.
Yeah, because who cares at this point? If you're listening to this, you're either a fan of us or you're really, really like Shrunk the Kids.
I would love to know, and please comment below, because I don't really see how you can listen to this to a point without recently seeing the movie. But like, even if only 20 people listen to this, but we've inspired all 20 of those to find the movie and watch it first, I'm counting that as a win.
That's fair. Actually, okay, very quickly before we go to the ant, on one visual effects point, actually, that I remember now, as it's just occurred to me. Right. The shots of the kid in the Cheerios and the shots of the overworld bowl of Cheerios, but there's never a shot that merges the two. There's never a perspective shot in between. You've either got the far out shot from Wayne Zielinski's perspective where it's a normal bowl of Cheerios, or you're at the very zoomed in kid perspective stuck in the mix of a Cheerio. But I think what really would have sold that better is a mid shot where you can see the hand and the bowl of Wayne, but still see the kid in the bowl. Because otherwise, it feels like one is shot on location and one is shot on a soundstage, and never the twine shall meet. You know, it feels so separate that I'm convinced the kid's fallen in another bowl somewhere else.
I do like that, but what held that scene together for me was I just love that the dog like bites him, and that's what makes him see it and stuff. I love how onside the dog is.
Yeah, that's a weird trend that I'm glad has finished in films. I'm glad unnecessarily clever and observant animals is, because that's, my dogs and cats don't do that, Chris. What world are we living in where the dog's that clever? I think all the pets from these movies, from like these family movies from the sort of like late 80s, early 90s, they all had them, and they were all extremely clever. They were all basically Lassie, like human in all but speech.
They do have an incredible sense of smell and hearing, though. I don't think it's that. I think there are more egregious, like, that would never happen things in this movie than the dog being able to, like, hear and realise.
Yeah, but it's not just... That's where you've gone wrong. The dog hear is one thing. Realise that the kid's about to be eaten is a very different... you're applying a certain amount of problem solving that I know factually a dog could never achieve.
But I'm just like thinking of like the dogs that go up to graves and stuff like that, and yeah.
Again, smell, sense, that makes sense. But putting together that he can smell the kid's in the cereal, therefore the adult is about to eat the cereal, the dog must bite him to stop him doing that. Like, that train of thought is problem solving dogs just are not capable of. It's the problem solving that's that's, even if he realised what was about to happen, having the understanding to bite the other guy to stop him, no. No. As someone who's lived with dogs, no. They are not that bright.
Yeah, I will freely admit that my animal knowledge is not that strong. Yeah.
But here's the thing: it was a trope from movies at that time, and they got away with it just fine. But like, it's something that I'm glad stopped, is what I'm saying, because animals acting in completely unrealistic ways, where they've essentially made them humans in all but their ability to speak, in terms of the way their brains work. I'm glad that trope is dead, because that's ridiculous.
That's fair enough.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
Yeah, there you go. So the ant. Do you think it's harsh in a Disney movie to kill the sidekick pet? I mean, imagine if in Frozen they'd killed the bloody reindeer or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just that seems.
It's a very noble death, though, isn't it?
A noble death, great, and I'm sure it drew an emotional reaction from kids at the time. But I still think killing the animal sidekick. Imagine if they'd killed off the bloody crab in Little Mermaid or whatever. Like, I don't know. It seems.
I mean, those could talk, but yeah, I love that we literally made the point about me being less into animals than you, and then you were like, they killed the animal, and you're like, Jesus, how bad is that? And I'm like, it wasn't speaking, so perfectly highlighting the point.
I don't know.
It is. Yeah, it is a bit. It is certainly bold, and it was. I must admit, I couldn't remember it when that happened. I was like, God, is the ant gonna die? Like, Jesus.
I remember them befriending the ant, but I don't remember the ant dying. And I remembered it fighting the scorpion, though. That visual came to me as we were watching it. I was like, oh, he fights a scorpion, but I didn't remember his death at all. That's really harsh. And also, they missed an opportunity, because I think he calls the ant. What does he call the ant? He gives the ant a name.
Auntie, I think.
Okay. I just thought you should have called him Anthony.
Yeah, maybe it was Anthony, but I remember thinking, why is it not Anthony? Do you think? Would you have preferred it if they'd have played up and made more of the angle of this kind of shit happens in nature all the time, but people don't see it?
Maybe.
It's still dark for a Disney children's movie, but I'm just wondering if that's an angle of it that would have made it better for you.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe that would have been a nicer point to make. I found the joke, by the way, from the opening of the script.
Oh yeah, go on.
It's Janet asked Paul.
But you found a transcript of it online then?
Literally just. Because I was trying to find out what they called the ant, but because I had got the transcript up in an attempt to find that, I've ended up finding the joke.
What's the joke?
They broke up for religious differences. Yeah, she thought she was God and he disagreed.
Oh yeah, I do remember. I did laugh out loud
That's
at
a
that.
great joke.
Yeah. It is a very good joke.
That's a very well constructed joke. So he's not called Anthony.
What's he called? Auntie.
Well, I'm having trouble finding it because if you type ant into a script, there are lots of words that have those three letters together. Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot of wanted, want. So bear with me, I will find it. But yeah, that might have made it better. Oh, here we go. How fast can ants go? Just one ant. You can lift 50 times their own weight. 50 times, that's like bench pressing a bulldozer. See, that's one of the, again, that's a perfect example of a joke that just doesn't function at all, but it's there because it fit in a joke. Let's see. This is your ant, blah, blah, blah. God, my God, they say the word ant a lot at this point in the movie.
There's a giant ant on screen, to be fair.
Yeah, that's fair. I can't see what they called him. And then there's the scene where he Oh, yeah, he calls it Auntie. You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of noise outside, just warning if anyone can hear that. I have moved to avoid it, and that was the right decision, Dan, because I don't know what they're doing out there now, but they are digging up something.
So when you say move to avoid it, you mean before we started recording? Because for listeners, you haven't moved mid-podcast.
No.
Right.
While you're looking up that, what did you think of the performances? Because, there's 4 child actors leading this, essentially.
Yeah, historically, kid actors are terrible. Kid actors are historically the worst, and all 4 of these kids are awesome at what they're doing. They're all really good. They got very lucky, I think, with the casting here. Well, not very lucky, I suppose. They chose good actors. Luck. Let's take that out of it. The casting people did very well to find 4 kids that could act. I think often movies with a primarily kid-focused cast are a pain in the arse, and you want to punch the kids in the face for being irritating little shits. But no, these kids are all really good.
Very rarely do you get 4 for 4 either. All 4 of them are good.
Yeah, usually there's at least one bad one, and you're just like, oh god, shut up, you're talking again. Really good. And then obviously Rick Moranis is the standout, I think, in this film of the rest of the cast.
Rick Moranis does this beautifully subtle, crazy professor.
I was really expecting. That's a good point. I was really expecting wacky professor from Rick Moranis. Thinking about how exaggerated his character in Ghostbusters was. There's another film from my childhood that I remember scene to scene. I genuinely was expecting this to be like wacky, zany, over the top scientist, and he did something very, very subtle but very likable and very believable. Yeah, no, 10 points to Rick Moranis. I think he did a great job there.
And obviously it helped that he retired, and he retired for very noble reasons. For those that don't know, his wife sadly passed away, so he retired to look after his kids, and then just the way he described it, I think in an interview, was he found he didn't really miss it. So maybe it's because he retired early, but I mean his hit rate: Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Ghostbusters, Spaceballs, Little Shop of Horrors. Like he's done some hits.
Little Shop of Horrors is another one from my childhood. I had that on VHS.
I just said that maybe the mic cut out. That was the last one I named. But anyway.
No, I was I was responding to you saying that.
Oh, right, I see what you mean. Sorry, I thought you were going. I thought I went Little Shop of Horrors, and then I heard you as Little Shop of Horrors. That was one.
Oh, maybe
But
I
now
accidentally
see what you mean
mimicked
now.
your
Yeah.
tone and
Yeah,
without
I see what
realizing.
you mean now.
No, I meant to be like, oh yeah, Little Shop of Horrors,
Yes.
because like that is legitimately like a
Another childhood one.
yeah.
Yeah, never
100%.
seen it.
I watched that so many times. I know all the songs from that, and I even know quite intimately the alternate ending, which is way better than the true ending. Oh, the alternate ending, it would have fucking ruined me as a kid. It's brilliantly dark. I love it, and I wish they'd kept that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Did a quick ghost?
maybe we'll do that
quick
one.
Ghostbusters. Yeah, we can do that one. Quick, we can do them all, mate. We can do them all. Quick. People comment below if you want us to do that. Quick. Ghostbusters 2 question, because I've not seen Ghostbusters 2, but when like looking up Rick Moranis and stuff for this, I saw a picture of him in a Ghostbusters uniform, but he's not a Ghostbuster, is he? Does he randomly become a Ghostbuster in Ghostbusters 2?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Because they're all gone. I can't remember
Right.
if they get put in like jail or something. There's a joke that they're all out of the picture. I can't remember if they get arrested
Right.
or something happens, and then he's like, "Well, I gotta pick up the mantle," and he gets in the uniform and like he tries to do some ghostbusting, and then Slimer like basically like fucks with him for 30 minutes of the movie. It's great.
Oh, wow. Fair play.
Although I'm less familiar with Ghostbusters 2 than 1 because I think 2 is a terrible movie.
Yeah, no, I've not seen it. I've only seen it was years before I watched the first one. But anyway.
Second one is
Yeah,
terrible.
so great acting. You got any other overarching thoughts or specific scenes you want to
No,
talk about?
I'm ready to go with the triv if you are, Chris.
Oh wait, are you done? Do you want to say anything else about Auntie? Do you want to pay tribute in any other way?
No, I just commemorate. No, that's not the word I'm looking for. Commend the writers for being bold enough to do that in a Disney movie.
Yeah.
No.
Before it was all cool, and before Pixar came along and made that kind of shit secondhand.
Yeah. They don't kill even Pixar don't go as far as killing the fucking animal sidekicks, though, do they? The only time they've done that I can think of is Bing Bong. And Bing Bong does not count. He's an imaginary friend. And he represents...
Whoa! I mean, that was pretty.
It's tragic.
pretty
Don't get me.
upsetting,
We're not talking about its upsettingness. It just doesn't count as an animal sidekick being killed.
Right? Yeah. Fair
Bing
enough.
Bong represents letting go of your childhood imaginary friend. That's extremely sad, but ultimately he doesn't really exist.
Not for me, Dan. Me and Teddy Tom are still tight, still pals.
There you go. Right, should we do the trivia?
So, yeah.
Because we're about to go over the fucking length of the movie, which is ridiculous.
Fine by me. Carry on.
In an early version of the script, there were 5 kids, one of which who died during the sprinkler sequence.
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah.
I mean, we've just spent quite a bit of time saying how the ant was dark.
Yeah, I guess we got off
Well,
light.
that is. Wow. Presumably, that wasn't in the script for too long. You'd
because
assume?
the sprinkler sequence is played... The actual reason the sprinklers get turned on is played as a joke. He's not thought it through, and he's going round and round in circles, and eventually... Oh, no, that's not when he's going in circles. That's when he's using, like, pogo stick propping up, right?
Yeah, and he catches
the hose and pulls it, which turns the nozzle and sends the sprinklers on. But imagine if that, like, sort of clumsy physical humour was punctuated by the death of a child.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of also, how long, by the way, just because that reminded me of another scene, how long did those makeshift lanterns made of cigarette ash burn for?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point.
And that must have stank.
Yeah, embers don't stay lit for that long.
No. Anyway, carry on.
So Chevy Chase and John Candy both turned down the role of Wayne Zielinski. But apparently...
Sorry, can I just say one other thing that's not trivia that I forgot to mention?
Go on.
I love the cleverness of when he puts the hat back on at the end after the dad has shrunk and then got big again. I love the notion. I always viewed that as he's been he's not been put back to full size,
Yes.
right? Like that being the gag.
Yes.
But you could also view it as he's got more space in his hat because the cigarettes are no longer in there.
Oh yeah, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, it was really clever.
That is clever. I always liked it because he's Big Russ. The idea that when that he's been not put back to his original size. But that is that is good. Yeah. There you go.
Sorry,
That's
carry
clever.
on. So Chevy Chase
Ma-
or John Candy?
Well, so basically, Martin Short was initially attached to play the role, but Chevy Chase and John Candy both turned it down before that, and Candy had apparently suggested Rick Moranis for the role during his audition process.
Oh, wow.
So when they could no longer use Martin Short, who was initially attached, I don't know what happened there. There's no further details. They then went to Rick Moranis, and apparently
Martin. Yeah.
Well, apparently Candy had also auditioned for, but suggested Rick Moranis for the role in Ghostbusters too. So John Candy is just a fucking legend.
A big fan of Rick Moranis. Fair play. Out of those three options, Martin Short would have been my preferred. I can't really imagine Chevy Chase or John Candy, but they got the ideal person. Rick Moranis is the.
I think John Candy just after Uncle Buck. I think John Candy just went up for every major adult role in kids' films.
Yeah, fair.
Which is understandable. He's great in that movie. So.
Yeah.
It would have been a very different approach to the character, though. I agree with the crux of your point is though that he would not have suited the role the same way.
Yeah, I don't think I don't know if they'd have had Rick Moranis works because he's got quite a gentle nature, and it helps you forgive him for this huge fuck up. But it doesn't make sense of the wife forgiving him.
That's the thing is it's the kid's fuck up.
That's true.
The kids knock the ball through the window. The kids go snooping around this fucking lab. Like how is this his fault?
Yeah, that's fair.
He's an inventor inventing a machine that the kids should never have been able to go near through complete chance. Which, by the way, this is the part. This is the biggest part of the movie that I find hardest to believe. Not that he invented a shrinking ray at all, but that the baseball comes through the window and happens to hit every correct button to turn the thing on.
Yeah. I know.
And then rolls into the fucking path, and then just as he's about to come up the stairs and into the room, it then rolls off that point and then hits another button to shut it down. That is an insane. I mean, that is basically a sentient baseball, is what that is.
He also, two things on that as well. He smashes up the machine pretty good. Another scene I did not remember. And we don't particularly see him fixing it. Like, that's another plot point that just gets ignored. That jeopardy of... And
not
I don't
completely, though, because if you recall, she sees him at the machine. That's him repairing it.
Yeah, him sleeping is him repairing it. Yeah, I get that. But, like, it is also... They go to the garden anyway. That's the danger. We don't really need the jeopardy of the machine being broken, do we?
No, 100% agreed. Yeah. But that's how he ends up needing to sweep.
Yeah, and it's there. Oh, yeah, that's true. And it's there also so she can look at him and he's hard at work fixing the machine and stuff. But,
yeah.
I don't think they're snooping too much, by the way. They walk in and essentially just immediately get zaps.
Wait, what now? What was that one?
I don't think they're being too snoopy with the machine. There's a sense of, oh wow, what's this? Certainly, the older kids literally walk through the door.
Yeah, but it's their fault they've gone up into his dad's lab at all. It's a baseball. Wait, like, don't, do you know what I mean? It's a science.
Yeah.
He's experiments from there. You don't just go wandering into his. Which, by the way, actually, I love the notion of the thinking couch. I thought that was a funny idea that that's how he recognised that it had all because his couch was gone. Although I can't imagine anybody being so absent-minded that they would try to sit on a couch that was quite obviously not there. I think I would visually notice the lack of the couch before trying to sit on it, but that's just me.
I don't know. The mind of an inventor. Yeah, but again, that notion is another good example of the scripts really working.
Yeah. I mean, the absent-minded inventor is not an uncommon trope. Anyway, for the scene in which miniaturized Nick Zielinski drops into a bowl of Cheerio cereal, a tank was filled with 16,000 gallons of a milk-like substance made from chlorinated water, food thickener and pigment. The Cheerios were made from tractor tires, 12 feet in diameter, coated in foam.
I bet that mixture, the liquid mixture, did not taste good.
I can't imagine he was drinking it. He was swimming in it, Chris.
Yeah, but you accidentally get some in your mouth and up your nose, don't you? Like...
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I imagine it wasn't pleasant.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it would have been. It's chlorine, so it's like no more less pleasant than going to the swimming pool, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe.
The Society
That looks great, though.
The Society for the Preservation of English Language and Literature awarded Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with its 1989 Dunce Cap Award, citing the film's grammatical error of using the word shrunk instead of shrank. An unnamed Disney executive responded to that, saying that it was on purpose, directly referencing the line of dialogue.
That is phenomenal. I have never noticed that it should probably be Honey, I Shrank the Kids.
Yeah. And apparently, and I don't know if this is accidental or just something that's happened through translation with Cram, but one of our listeners, Cram, who listens to our Stephen University podcast and talks to us in the Discord sometimes, referred to it as "Darling, I Shrunk the Kids" the other day, and I think that's to do with the translations.
Oh right! Oh wow!
Because Cram not being from an English-speaking country, there must be in some countries it must translate more directly to "Darling, I Shrunk the Kids," which makes sense.
That's interesting.
No. That's not even a piece of trivia on here. I just noticed that he referred to it as that at one point.
Wow.
The neighborhood seen in the film is not at all real. It was built on the back lot of Churubusco Studios, which, by the way, the film was shot in Mexico. That wasn't mentioned, but that's... Yeah. They shot there for 6 months. An English garden located at the studio served as the backyard for the houses, and the houses were cleverly placed around the garden to hide other studio buildings from most directions.
That seems like a lot of effort, but fair enough.
No? Well, I suppose filming in Mexico, you save a lot of money, don't you?
No, but there's not a lot of shots of them in the neighborhood as a whole. There's the zoom in at the beginning. There's the police car.
No, all the stuff in the garden and the front of the house all the adult scenes in and around the house.
Oh, of course, right? Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So they built a little neighborhood, including those two houses, and all the outdoor scenes were shot in those studios around those sets. So those sets were primary for the film, weren't they? They were used. And
to be fair, they did a good job. So basically, all of that stuff was actually under a roof, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Oh, that is impressive. That you wouldn't think that.
Oh well, wait a second. Actually, an English garden located at the studio served as a backyard, and the houses were cleverly. Maybe it was outside then, but it was shot at the studios.
Okay. It does look very real though, so fair play.
Yeah, no, it does. The film's original title was Teeny Weenies.
That is not as good.
No. It was also rejected on the grounds that it sounded too much like a kids' film and would not appeal to adults.
Fair enough.
Directed by Joe Johnston, it was his directorial debut. Joe Johnston, of course, went on, ultimately, to direct Captain America: First Avenger.
Oh, nice. What, not the MCU Captain America, not the other one?
Yeah, the MCU one.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool. Fair play.
Yeah, I think he also did Rocket Man.
Nice.
Or the Rocketeer. The Rocketeer.
Oh right, okay. I was going to say not the Elton John. Yeah.
No, he's currently working on the Chronicles of Narnia: The Silver Chair.
I don't think we need more Narnia films, but anyway, separate thing.
Yeah, and he directed last year's classic, The Nutcracker and the Four Realms, which was terrible. What? Fucking hell! He also directed Jumanji and The Page Master.
This dude's made some movies.
Yeah, he is. I love Jumanji. I would not have guessed that Jumanji and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids were the same director.
No, I was just thinking that. There's not a lot of commonality between those films. Like, you know how, like, you can spot themes in Burton, or you can, spot themes in other people. But
it's not all good work, though, is it? He did Jurassic Park 3. Alan. Shudder. Anyway. And anyone who knows what I mean when I say Alan knows what I mean when I say Alan.
I haven't seen Jurassic Park 3, but I know what you mean when you say Alan.
Yeah. Shudder. The sets and props took more than 9 months to build. Wow. A May-June 1989 Disney Channel magazine reported 12 houses complete with front and backyards were built in addition to the 10-foot tall oatmeal cookie made from polyurethane foam and real cream filling. Oh my god, the cream filling was real.
Jesus.
40-foot tall foam blades of grass and a giant mechanical ant that required a dozen puppeteers to operate. The ant was constructed using latex foam and a latex foam core and horsehair, and recreated for stop motion sequences in which the children rode atop the insect.
It is impressive.
Yeah, agreed. No.
Did that stuff, because there was a sort of walkthrough place that had themed Honey I Shrunk, wasn't there? I don't know if it was on the outside of one of the Honey I Shrunk the audiences or something.
Yeah,
but was that all
exactly
from the
right.
movie? Yeah.
So Nadia went, but she said she must have gone after Blew Up was the thing because she remembers his big red shoe, seeing the big red shoe.
Oh, cool.
From Blew Up the Kid. So a lot of these things got repurposed as props for the line for the ride, basically.
Cool, because I've noticed one of the YouTube clips we've got to watch for Friday is like 55 minutes long. Obviously, we're not going to watch all of it, but yeah. So I just assumed that was the walking round of those props and stuff.
Yeah. For the what we do, yeah. So I skim through some of that, I'm sure. I'll talk you through what we've got in content wise for that when we get closer to it. We're not doing that one straight away. So the animated short Tummy Trouble was a Roger Rabbit short that Disney put together after the success of Roger Rabbit. It was the first animated short Disney had put together since 1965 for a feature film, and it cost $1.8 million, and it was actually released alongside Honey I Shrunk the Kids. So if you saw Honey I Shrunk the Kids in theaters for the first 3 months, Roger Rabbit was, well, it can't have been in theaters for 3 months. Let me reread that. After an initial trailer devoted entirely to Honey I Shrunk the Kids played in theaters for 3 months, another trailer for the film devoted its 2/3 to the short, aiming to draw in Roger Rabbit fans. So they put out a trailer for Honey I Shrunk the Kids that was 2/3 Roger Rabbit content, so people would go to see the Roger Rabbit short and then be stuck with Honey I Shrunk the Kids.
That is crazy. They are definitely digging up the road outside now, by the way. So if anyone can hear that, I apologise.
Yeah.
You can't hear it, can you?
I can't know, but I've got you quite low on my side, so I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think, looking at the markers on the microphone, I'm glad I moved. Carry on.
The animated short was... Wait, many credit the success of the film towards audiences wanting to see more of Roger Rabbit. So there you go.
I don't know if... I'd like to think that wasn't true, but...
If it was heavily featured in the marketing, and Roger Rabbit had been a hit,
yeah,
you could argue a certain amount of people, certainly. Critical reception for the film was generally positive. The film's box office success, grossing $22 million in its first week of release. First week earnings surpassed Disney's previous highest single week record of $20 million set by Three Men and a Baby. The film went on to gross $130 million in theaters and became the sixth highest grossing home video of 1990.
Wow.
Okay. A 1989 LA Times article called Disney's decision to pair Tummy Trouble with Honey I Shrunk the Kids as a masterstroke and suggested the film benefited from moviegoers who were unable to secure a ticket to sold-out releases of Batman in 1989. The highest grossing release of the same opening weekend. The highest grossing release... Oh, I see what they're saying. So the weekend that Honey I Shrunk the Kids came out, Batman also came out, and they're saying that anyone who couldn't get tickets to Batman went to see that.
Yeah, I'd heard or read that they think it also did well based on counter programming from people from Batman being sold out. So people just going, okay, we'll see this Shrunk the Kids film then.
Gotcha, that makes sense. Quark is the dog's name in the movie, which is an elementary particle. Sorry, and I'm just why can't I read this morning? It's fundamentally... Oh, God. Can I start that one again, Chris? Can we pretend I haven't spoken?
Please.
So Quark, which is the dog's name in the movie, is an elementary particle and a fundamental It's matter. It's a fundamental thing of matter. I'm giving up.
Cool. Good
Cool.
triv.
Thanks. Right. So scenes involving all the adult characters were shot first, followed by the special effects heavy scenes in which the children worked on oversized sets to blend the more normal sized and miniature worlds. The footage from the first and second units was combined with blue screen material, special effects shots, and VistaVision reductions. There you go.
Cool.
A screenwriter called Jeffrey Kauf sued Disney, claiming the idea for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was stolen from his screenplay about a boy who invents a shrinking formula. The lawsuit was rejected when by a federal judge, when he decided that the works were not substantially similar.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. Its original release date was actually 1988, but it got delayed till 1989 through just, I guess, production stuff.
I was going to say, well, was it not finished and stuff? Or...
Yeah, it must be. It doesn't specify here, but there you go. This is
it's a long shoot, isn't it? 6 months.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. This one's interesting, but I don't really know how I feel about this one because there's no further information, and I did a little research and could not figure out what the fuck who this is and why this is. So, there's an actor called Patrick Brown, and they're the only actor to have appeared in both Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show. So one actor fell over, and I'm thinking, well, what is that? Is that the son? Is that the, like... I don't know, who is that? Cannot figure it out. When you go on his IMDb page, it says he was in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids as uncredited. Great.
Right.
And then you go to his listing for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show, and his character is just called Jay. And he was in one episode. I shrug. I don't know who Patrick Brown is. I don't know who he is in this movie. And I don't know who he is in the TV series. So, shrug.
Maybe he was one of the background... Maybe he was one of the non-speaking scientists.
I suspect he was one of the kids. Like, maybe the kid with the lawnmower.
That wouldn't be uncredited.
Was the lawnmower kid credited? We don't know.
He must have been. He had lines.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, okay, there you go. That must be one of the scientists then or something. Yeah, I can't think of who else he would be.
Anyway. But it doesn't sound like he's playing the same character.
No, it doesn't. But I found that really interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
This is one of 3 films released in 1989 to feature an animated title sequence. The other 2 are National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation and Troop Beverly Hills. So there you go. I don't know what Troop Beverly Hills is, but there you go.
Fair play.
Originally, Stuart Gordon was attached to direct. However, Gordon himself became ill and dropped out, prompting him to recommend a former ILM art director, Joe Johnston, as his replacement. Johnston suggested changes to the screenplay, as he found it too special effects heavy and lacking in dimensional characters. And then Tom Schulman was brought on for a rewrite before he shot the movie.
That's interesting.
That might actually be the explanation for the release date changing.
Yeah, and it might be like why the argument stuff maybe isn't fully there, or maybe he added that. It'd be interesting to know what character stuff he added.
The titles Grounded and The Big Backyard were also considered and subsequently dropped during pre-production.
The Big Backyard isn't too bad.
Yeah, I guess.
It's not as good.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's alright. It's fine. Would have been functional. Probably wouldn't have been as memorable.
No, definitely not.
Big Russ Thompson says he was captain of the football team in high school. Matt Frewer, the actor who plays him, was the quarterback of his high school team in real life.
How do people find out this shit?
I do not know.
Yeah.
Here's one that I like, though. If we take the ages of the actors as the ages of their characters, Matt Frewer's character, Big Russ Thompson, would have only been 14 when Little Russ was born.
Amazing. I thought that was going to be one of those, like, Russ Jr. was played by a 30-year-old.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah, there you go.
Cool.
That's irrelevant. we're at the bottom end of the trivia now. Because what I like about IMDb, but also don't like, is that you vote whether you found it interesting, and it goes up the list. So as you get further down, here's one: Quark is a wired-haired Jack Russell Terrier. Don't care.
Good fact. Good triv.
That's not good triv. In the scene where the teens find the oatmeal cookie and eat it, forced perspective was used to make it seem bigger. Well, there you go. Okay. Let's have a look. I'm just reading through the last couple just to check. Oh, this one's a good one actually. Where at around 1 hour.
Give it an upvote then. Obviously.
Yeah. You're right. Interesting. Yes. I thought that was... Oh, now it's taking me off that page to sign into IMDb. Back out. When the cops get back into their car to see the missing children report for the Zelinskys, you can see previous reports from the household states 12 counts of disturbing the peace.
That's very good, because that's presumably Russ.
Yeah, 100%.
Russ Senior. Big Russ.
Yeah, almost certainly. And this one, I don't know if this is trivia, but... little Russ Thompson asks Amy O'Neill to the school dance before they return to normal size. She asks if he can dance, and he says no. In real life, the actor, what's his name, Thomas Wilson Brown, spent many years studying classical dance as a boy.
That's good triv. I like that.
Yeah, all right. Cool.
That just shows how good an actor he is. When he said he couldn't dance, I believed him, Dan.
You got me there. You've got me there. Right, is the hell over? Am I done? Am I free? Are we?
Why are you calling it hell?
No,
like, chill out. You've enjoyed yourself, haven't you?
No, I have. It's been fun. But, like, I will say that, like, I was really expecting this to be more, like, chaotic than actual analysis of the film. But I guess, knowing us, I should have presumed we were going to get to really analysing the film.
Of course. I don't know why you would think we would do anything but take this seriously.
Yeah,
It is more interesting and unknown from now on. I do not have particular memories of Blew Up the Kid. I remember really enjoying Shrunk Ourselves, but I suspect it doesn't. Doesn't hold up as well.
Right, so I said to Nadia, "Do you want to watch Honey I Shrunk the Kids with me?" She's like, "Yeah, fine. Can I also watch Blew Up, because that's the one I like and remember the most?" I was like, "No problem." And I was like, and then we might as well round off the trilogy together. Obviously, I don't expect you to watch The Ride or the series, but how about we watch the third one? You've never seen it. And then she was like, no. And I was like, well, I tell you what, I know what I'll do. I'll convince you with the trailer. I bet the trailer's brilliant, because I remember enjoying that one as well, Chris. I put the trailer on.
Yeah.
She's definitely not watching it. And to be honest with you, Chris, I'm tempted not to either.
No, you got to.
It's a bad trailer. Oh my god, if the film is even a fraction of the quality of that trailer, we're in trouble.
There seems to be a lot of product placement. I'll say that, because I watched the trailer as well, and I was like, like Hot Wheels and stuff. Like,
yeah.
Apparently, it comes from the success. It came from the success of Lion King 2.5 or whatever it was. There were a lot of animated Disney sequels that went straight to video that did well, so they decided to try it with a live action.
I'm sure we'll discuss that at the time.
Oh, I've got a bit of trim for next week, mate. For tomorrow, for Blew Up the Kid.
Great. Well, yeah, come back tomorrow for Blew Up the Kid. I think we settled on an order for these, but
yeah.
But what was the order? We're ending on the third movie then.
So we're going Blew Up the Kid. You don't want to know my piece of trivia now? It might affect your enjoyment of the film.
No, we'll do it. We'll do it tomorrow.
Okay. Blew Up the Kid.
Not literally tomorrow. We're recording these ahead of time. We're recording these with a bit of space, thank fuck.
Blew Up the Kid, The Ride. Unless it's The Ride... No, I don't think it's The Ride tomorrow. I think it's Blew Up the Kid.
The Ride was Honey, We Shrunk the Audience.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember whether The Ride existed before the second movie. I don't think it did. I think The Ride was 95.
What we figured out was 1, 2, The Ride, the series, and then 3.
The film. And technically, for big Honey, I Shrunk franchise fans out there, technically the TV show aired after the movie, but we didn't really... It felt right to end on the movie that had Rick Moranis in, etc.
Yeah,
so.
But also, let's be honest... Timing-wise, they came out the same year.
Yeah, they came out exactly the same year. Yeah. Oh yeah, but the TV show did then run for 3 years. But
I would have felt less comfortable ending. I would have felt more comfortable ending on the series if it had literally started a few years later. Because then it definitely but because it was so close, we felt like we had a bit of wiggle room.
Yeah, and fundamentally we want to end on a movie, and we want to end. It's nice to end on the one that starred Rick Moranis. Actually, his last appearance on screen. He's done voiceover stuff since, not much, but some. But this was his last, acting role.
Is that right?
As in person.
Is that right? I thought he'd done something since. I thought he'd come out of retirement to do. Yeah, he was in the Goldberg. He was. Oh, he'd voiced though in the Goldberg.
He's voiced though, yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh no, 2000. I know, voice again. Holy shit. No, he did Big Bully in 1996. 3 years.
Yeah, but this was 1997.
Oh, you shit! You're right. You're right. You're right. There you go.
Yeah.
Holy fuck! Last time we saw Rick Moranis on screen.
Honey, we shrunk ourselves.
Well, with the exception of his appearance in a documentary, but that doesn't count.
Which are you most excited about now? I'm quite excited for Shrunk Ourselves. I'm quite excited for Blew Up the Kid. The ride, I think, will be madness as a podcast episode.
No, it's all about the TV series because I think is
really,
yeah, because that I have fond memories of it, but I know it's a mess. Do you know what I mean? Like I think I think it's a mess.
I think the thing that fascinates me just from the episode titles alone of the TV series, it goes to some fucking weird places.
Well, that was what was great about the TV series was the idea of the series as opposed to the film was that, yes, he's an inventor that invented the shrink ray or whatever, but he's also it's a whole bunch of different science fiction MacGuffin. He's more like, Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty.
It's the crazy inventor show, yeah.
Than he is Wayne Zelinsky, and that because he's got a basement full of all sorts of weird shit that leads to all sorts of hijinks. So yeah, I'm excited to go through it.
And each episode is 42 minutes madness,
and they made like 70 of them. Like, yeah,
we're not watching all 70 to clarify to people.
No, we're not. We're gonna watch. I think I'm probably gonna watch the first couple together in a row, and then I'm probably gonna do a random selection from the other seasons.
Yeah, same. Cool.
Great.
But that podcast will be a mess because it will be the reason we've analysed this is because we've both watched the same and we're pinpointing specific moments. If we've both watched different episodes, we can't pinpoint moments, so that's it'll be a mess. You'll get your chaos on the ride of the TV 100%. Show episode, Dan.
So yeah, so 1, 2, the ride, the series, and the third movie. That is how it is working out. So we'll come back tomorrow, obviously, for the second movie. Don't subscribe. It's a terrible idea. This is nuts. Why are we doing this?
Subscribe.
Subscribe, I guess, if you want. Also, I think, anyone at this point dedicating a 2-hour podcast to that fucking movie is like, we're losing our minds. What are we doing?
Again, anytime you got a suggestion, we do it and it's fine. I feel like you need to get on board with this, or I'm going to start being grouchy on other podcasts.
What do you mean you're going to start being grouchy on other podcasts? What's this start nonsense?
That's a fair point.
If you listen to the first episode of Steven Universe, if you listen to the first episode of Fringe, you're nothing but bitter about being made to do it.
That's a fair point, yeah.
Let me be bitter. If we're truly doing this in the style of the others but with the roles reversed, then I should be bitter, and I am bitter.
Are you particularly bitter about the fact that we've potentially already watched the best bit of content?
Yeah. Very much so. Because I am fairly confident everything that follows this is just all downhill. And it wasn't even, it was good, but it wasn't, great, was it? Because it was, again, it's a lot of, aimed at kids, sort of childhood wish fulfillment stuff. I don't know what I'm getting out of the second one or the third one or the ride, but we'll see. Look, hey, you never know. Maybe that'll be part of the fun. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely.
Into the great unknown. So thanks very much for listening. God, if you got this far, we should do the old school. We've not done this in a while on Nothing But Static. We should do it here. We should do an old school code word you can use if you got all the way to the end, just to prove you got this far. So,
French class.
What?
French class is the because that's the end of the movie as well.
Right, do it. Yeah, French class on its own, out of context. In the comments below, if you got to the end of this podcast, or on
also,
our Discord if you're on there.
Also, in a separate comment, please tell us if you rewatched the movie, because like I don't know how anyone could sit through 2 hours of this without not. So yeah.
Yep, do that too. Cool. There you go. Well, thanks very much for listening. Subscribe at your own peril. We'll be back tomorrow for Honey Eye. The we
Honey
doesn't
Eye
come
Bill.
until Shrunk ourselves, does it? So it's come back tomorrow for what was it? Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Yep.
And pray for us. Just pray for us. So yeah, thanks very much for listening. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And come back tomorrow for more of this Honey, I Shrunk chaos. Dear Lord, what have we done? We've created a monster.